لا نبي بعده وعلى آله وصحبه ومن تمسك بسنته إلى يوم الدين وسلم تسليما كثيرا أما بعد. We continue in Kitaab At-Tawheed 717, Friday, January 11, 2018, which is now in Jumad al-Awwal. Wow, we're in Jumad al-Awwal, the fifth night of Jumad al-Awwal, 1440 after the Hijrah of Mustafa alayhi salatu wassalam. You guys got your books today? We continue Kitaab At-Tawheed, the great Imam. If you'll notice as we continue in the chapter, we said باب ما جاء أن سبب كفر بني آدم وتركهم دينهم الغلو في الصالحين. The chapter which comes in the reason for why the children of Adam fell into disbelief and them leaving off the religion was because of extremism in regards to the righteous. We finished the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, or rather the statement of Ibn al-Qayyim rahimahullah, stating the reasons of why people fell into polytheism in the past due to extremism. And extremism, ya ma'ashal ikhwa, is of different types. It's not just in regards to why the people fell into idolatry and paganism, and idolatry of the past was because of extremism. Rather, you'll find you even find that the Muslims, or why they fell into deviance in regards to their belief system, was also due to extremism. So it wasn't just in the aspects of polytheism of the past, what happened with Nuh, where they went into the extremes in regards to love for the righteous. As we know, Shaitan came in the image and now inciting their emotions and their love they have for the righteous until they made their love exceed the bounds. They raised them at a level in which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did not give them until they deitized them and made them objects of worship. In which, like we said, where they went into the extremes of love. Not only in the extremes of love, but even the extremes in the aspect of worship, of the ibadah. Where they instead of them directing their ibadah to Allah, they started directing their ibadah to human beings who were righteous people and righteous individuals. And as a result of it, like we said, they fell into disbelief. You'll find even the deviant sects of today, they also fall into extremism from the Muslims who deviated from the correct understanding of Islam, in which the companions were upon, and also those you'll find that deviated from the correct methodology also fell into a type of extremism, as we'll talk about inshallah. And also those who wreak havoc and chaos and mass hysteria in the earth, from the Khawarij, from those renegades, and those who are also from the people of terrorism. You'll find that they also went to an extreme in the affair of their belief system, which drove them to the point of where they started to do these wicked, corruptive acts, which as a result of it, it caused the religion of Islam to be distorted in the minds of a lot of people due to a type of extremism they fell into. So we said, after we completed that statement of Ibn al-Qayyim and we explained it, you now go on to the next text. If you read your books, you notice the next narration, as it says on Yithari Umar رضي الله عنه أن رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم قال لا تطروني كما أطرت النصارى ابن مريم إنما أنا عبد الله ورسوله فقولوا عبد الله ورسوله. So the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم, or this narration of Yithari Umar رضي الله عنه وأرضاه, you find that Umar al-Khattab radiallahu anhu, that he mentioned that the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said with another authentic narration where it says that he said, do not exceed the bounds in praising me. Do not exceed the bounds in praising me. Just as the Christians exceeded the bounds, just as the Christian exceeded the bounds in praising the Son of Mary. Verily I am a abd, I'm a servant and a slave of Allah. I'm a servant and I'm a slave of Allah, so say Abdullah wa Rasuluh. So say that the slave of Allah, or the servant of Allah and His messenger. You'll find that there's been reported on the authority of Umar al-Khattab radiallahu anhu, if you look in your books. It is said, as we know, Umar al-Khattab, his name was Umar ibn al-Khattab ibn Amr ibn Nufayl al-Adawi al-Qurashi. Umar al-Khattab, that his name was Umar ibn al-Khattab ibn Amr ibn Nufayl ibn Amr ibn Nufayl al-Adawi al-Qurashi. Nufayl billam. Nufayl. Umar ibn al-Khattab ibn Amr ibn Nufayl billam al-Adawi al-Qurashi. What happened? What's wrong? Who? No. What happened? I'm thrown off. Oh, you said, oh, no, don't worry about it. طيب. You'll find, Ya Ma'ashal Ikhwa, the message of Allah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, of course, in this text, you'll find that he said, do not exceed the bounds in praising me. Do not exceed the bounds in praising me. لا تطروني. لا إطراء هو التجاوز في حد المدح. Is to transgress or exceed the bounds in praising an individual. What they call إطراء. إطراء also means like a compliment somewhat. It means like a compliment linguistically. But also it can mean exceeding the bounds in praising an individual. So you'll find that the message of Allah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam in this narration, of course, is clarifying the reality of who he is, alayhi salatu wasalam, and to put him in a respectable, revered manner in which he deserves, not being overpraised to the point he's raised at a level in which Allah did not give him, which is the level of being worshipped. As we know, the statement of the Salaf that they used to say that أن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم هو عبد لا يعبد وَرَسُولٌ نَبِيٌّ لَا يُكَذَّبْ. That the message of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam is abdun la yu'bad. He's a servant, he's not worshipped. And he's a prophet and a messenger, and he's not rejected, meaning his prophethood and his messengership. So you notice that statements put the message of Allah in his proper what? In his place, where he had a high status, not exceeding a bounds, where it went now reaches the levels of being a deity of worship, nor likewise rejecting his messengership to the point where he's belied until the people say that he's a liar in regards to what he came with of being a prophet and a messenger. So you'll find those two extremes have been what? Have been rejected in this narration here. As we'll talk about inshallah. So he said, do not exceed the bounds in praising me, just as the Christians exceeded the bounds in praising Ibn Maryam. For verily I am a servant. So you see that the Messenger of Allah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam is clarifying to his ummah not to what? To deitize him. Not to raise him to the level of ibadah. Not to worship him, just as what happened with the Christians, where they exceeded the bounds of Jesus, the son of Mary, where they started to worship him. And so they started giving him khasa'is of uluhiyah. You'll find that they started giving Jesus, the son of Mary, characteristics of worship. You'll find that in this, which is clearly in the belief system and in the statements of the Christians. So you'll find, Ya Ma'ashal Ikhwa, when the message of Allah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said, La tuturuni, do not exceed the bounds in praising me. You'll find Al-Busayri, as we talked about before in his Burda, as we said this on many occasions, Suhail, you'll find that we said that Al-Busayri in his Burda, find that he went against exactly what the message of Allah prohibited in this narration. As I talked about, there's Muslims out there, especially from the Sufiya, and at the head of them is, like we said, Hamzah Yusuf, who encourages his followers to memorize the Burda of Busayri, which has in it worshipping the message of Allah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam and taking qualities of Allah and giving them to the message of Allah. You'll find in their poetry, as we said, and one of the statements of Al-Busayri in his Burda, that he said about the message of Allah, Ya akram al-khalqi ma li man adudhu bihi siwaka inda al-hadith siwaka inda huduth al-hadith al-amami wa in lam ta'khudh بيدي يوم معادي وإلا فقل يا زلة القدم فإن من جودك الدنيا وضرتها ومن علومك علم اللوح والقلم. You'll find Busayri, that he mentioned in his poetry, you'll find characteristics of Allah, he gave it to the Messenger of Allah, of knowing the affairs of the unseen. Oh, I forgot that hadith. I forgot to bring it up, bring it later. He said that saying that he has knowledge of the unseen, to say also likewise that he can save people on the day of resurrection by taking them and removing them out of the hellfire, but he is the one that ultimately makes the decision, not Allah. You'll find that these characteristics that he mentioned in saying how the knowledge of the unseen, meaning of the lawhul qalam, al-lawhul al-mahfuz, and the affairs of, or the knowledge of the pen and the preserved tablet is also for the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So all those are characteristics in which you'll find that is for Allah, they gave it to the Messenger of Allah. So you find also that Abu Sayyidi said in another poetry, he said, دع ما ادعته النصارى في نبيهم واحكم بما شئت مدحا فيه واحتكم. You'll find that Abu Sayyidi also said in his poetry, saying, leave off what the Christians claim about Jesus ibn the son of Mary, and call him with all of every, or fill your mouth up with every type of praise that you want, and also go to the extremes in that. What is he talking about? He's saying, okay, the Christians say that Jesus is the third of Allah, or the third of three, or he's the son of Allah. Okay, leave that off. But everything else that comes to your mind, go ahead and say it. Even if it's something that goes against the Sharia, or goes against what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has what? Sent down. So he's saying it now, he's legalizing and saying that it's permissible to what? Say everything about the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, or say everything about Jesus the son of Mary, of what is of praise, even if it exceeds the bounds. But however, just leave off the statement that he's the what? The son of a God, or the third of three. Which still in this statement is still incorrect. For verily, ya ma'ashal ikhwa, this is the type of statements you'll find in Hamzah Yusuf that he encourages his followers to memorize. Memorize statements of polytheism in which, and praise of the message of Allah that exceeds the bounds, raising him above a level that he did not only did Allah did not give him, but even the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam rejected this notion and rejected this belief. So you'll find it says in the narration here that it says, say, do not exceed the bounds of praising me, just as the Christians have exceeded the bounds of praising Ibn Maryam, the son of Mary. As I said, keep in mind the Burda of Busayri is memorized and encouraged by Hamzah Yusuf right now. And we know Hamzah Yusuf is a Sufi, big time Sufi, big time. In which you'll find that he also collaborated with Ali Jifri. Ali Jifri, as they call him, Habib Ali Jifri, who say that it's permissible to make dua to the Messenger of Allah. For Habib Ali Jifri, you'll find that Hamzah Yusuf collaborated with him. And he also encourages his followers to memorize the Burda of al-Busayri, which has in this poetry, like we just described, taking characteristics of Allah and giving them to the Messenger of Allah. We talked about that. When the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, verily I am just a abd, verily I'm just a servant, you'll never find any ayah in the book of Allah ta'ala in which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala shows the high level of the Messenger of Allah alayhi salatu wasalam, except that he mentioned him in the context of him being al-abd, of him being a servant. That's it. You'll find in the book of Allah, Ashrafu al-Maqamat, or Ashrafu al-Maqamat al-Nubuwa, or Ashrafu al-Maqamat al-Itlaq, that you'll find in the highest levels in which Allah mentioned his messenger of certain events in certain places, whether it be for the message of Allah being raised above the heavens, which is something that to show that was something very special. Except in that same context, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala still ascribes and affirms for the message of Allah ubudiyah. Ubudiyah means just a abd, that's it. You'll never find that the most praiseworthy and honorable and distinguished characteristics and events that took place, except as if Allah Ta'ala was still saying, even though he has been given something that other human beings were given, as far as nubuwa, as far as risala, and as far as him seeing things of what Allah Ta'ala allowed him to see, in which other human beings did not see, Allah Ta'ala still described him as only being what? A slave, a abd. That's it, human being. It's as if you'll find that Allah Ta'ala is refuting those who try to say, just because you see that he was raised or that he's seen things in certain affairs that he was given or characteristics, still he's only a human being, and he's still affirmed. Or you only affirm for him is what? Ubudiyah, the servitude, or the affirmation of him just being a worship of Allah, even though he's been given the privilege of messengership and prophethood. For the message of Allah in different ayats, you'll find Allah Ta'ala says in his book, for example, تبارك الذي نزل الفرقان على عبده ليكون للعالمين نذيرا. Allah Ta'ala says in his book, may he be glorified, the one who descended the Furqan. The first ayah is Surah Al-Furqan, first ayah. May he be glorified, the one, or be blessed, the one who sent down the Furqan. That's something tremendous. Allah Ta'ala sent down the final revelation upon one. That means this individual must be someone special. That he will send the last revelation and that which distinguishes between haqq and batil upon this individual. So that the context in which Allah is mentioning this affair is what? It's tremendous. He's talking about the Tanzil, Al-Furqan, which is the Quran and authentic Sunnah, as we know. So this matter is tremendous. It's something that stands out. And despite of that, Allah Ta'ala said in the same context about this matter, ala abdihi liyakuna lil alamina nadira. That he says, may he be blessed the one that sent down the Furqan upon his abd, upon his slave, upon his servant. So even though he's been given this privilege, he still has been commanded to carry out the ubudiyah and the ibadah of Allah, the servitude and the worship of Allah Ta'ala. That's it. Even though he's a messenger and a prophet and he needs to be revered, no doubt. And he needs to be shown utmost respect. However, at the same time, do not exceed the bounds where you take him to the level of worship, as you'll find that some of the Muslims do. You'll find that some of the Muslims, as we'll talk about inshallah, especially from those who are upon the ways of a Tijaniyah, and you'll find from the Sufis of the past, from the greatest of books that they claim to have. It's not the greatest of books of the Sunnah, but the greatest books that the people of the Sufis say. That they say, and this is a book by Ash-Sha'rani, Abdul-Wahhab Ash-Sha'rani, and it's called At-Tabaqat. الطبقات التي تحتوي على مضحكات ومبكيات في آن واحد. You'll find from books of the Sufis, which is called At-Tabaqat. I forgot what to say. At-Tabaqat. Or it's also called Al-Uhud Al-Muhammadiyya. It's two books he has. There's one called Tabaqat, and there's one called Al-Uhud Al-Muhammadiyya. At any rate, don't worry about it. Abdul-Wahhab Ash-Sha'rani has in that book very strange matters, as I talked about and gave descriptions of these examples. At any rate, as a matter of fact, I'm going to mention it all together. You'll find that a lot of those who ascribe themselves to Islam, they overpraise the Messenger of Allah and they exceed the bounds in his praise. You'll find that people, that they have the belief that the Messenger of Allah has knowledge of the unseen. Is this true? Does the Messenger of Allah have knowledge of the unseen? What do you say, Camden? The Messenger of Allah does not have knowledge of the unseen except what Allah allowed him to see. But على سبيل العموم لا ندعي أن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم يعلم الغيب. Generally, we do not claim that the Messenger of Allah صلى الله عليه وسلم knows the affairs of the unseen. We do not claim that he has any knowledge of the unseen except what Allah Ta'ala allowed him to see. You'll find that the Messenger of Allah himself has mentioned and said about himself, He says, لو كنت أعلم الغيب لاستكثرت من الخير وما مسني السوء. You'll find that the message of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam that said about himself that if I had knowledge of the unseen, he said I would have gathered all between what is good. I would have gathered and accumulated all good, and nothing of evil will be able to touch me or afflict me. So the message of Allah is negated from himself having knowledge of the unseen. So you'll find that there are different Muslims out there that ascribe to Islam that affirms that the message of Allah does have knowledge of the unseen. And when you hear this, we know that this is a type of khalal fi usus al-Islam. This is a type of discrepancy in the foundation of the religion. And that you will also find that there's some of the ways in which they say that the unseen is not hidden from the message of Allah. Is this correct? That the unseen is not hidden from the message of Allah. It's not hidden. And he sees it, generally, without any revelation. He knows it. He sees it. Is this correct? So Allah Ta'ala negates this matter, as we said in his book, Subhanahu Jalla fil Ula. They said, قُلْ لَا أَمْلِكُ لِنَفْسِ نَفْعًا وَلَا ضَرًّا إِلَّا مَا شَاءَ اللَّهُ. That's the ayah we're talking about now. لا أملك لنفسي نفعا ولا ضرا إلا ما شاء الله ولو كنت أعلم الغيب لاستكثرت من الخير وما مسني السوء. I do not own for myself for anyone to be touched by any benefit, meaning any soul or any human being, to be tested or put to trial by him gaining any benefit, or him being what? Put to trial by what? Some type of harm that may be in his life. Except what Allah wills. I mean, except what Allah allowed me to have knowledge of. And if I had knowledge of the unseen, I would accumulate all good, and no evil would touch me. So you'll find that the message of Allah has removed from himself that he has knowledge of the what, everyone? The unseen, except what Allah willed. And what Allah willed is what? Is of the revelation. Type. You'll find that there, from the ways of some of the Muslims in which you'll find that the shayateen has inspired, if you want to say, for lack of better words, some type of satanic inspiration, that a lot of them believe that the Messenger of Allah ﷺ can conduct in this existence after his death. And he can also visit certain people in certain places of the far corners of the earth, whether it be the east or the west. You'll find that there's a tariqah, a Sufiya. There's a tariqah of Sufiya called the Tijaniya by Ahmed al-Tijani, which I don't have time to talk about, which on another occasion, which we'll go more into depth. But right now, we'll keep it general. As I talked about, everyone, there's a lot of different types of tariqahs, or what they call turuq, a turuq al-Sufiya. From them, as we said, is Shadiliya. From them is Tijaniya. And from them is Qadiriyya. And from them is Naqshbandiyya. And from them is Bradlawiyya. And there's others. The Turuq al-Sufiyya al-Tijaniyya is also especially prevalent in Africa, especially in the areas of Sudan and other than them. In the areas of Africa, you'll find that the tariqah that they follow, Sufiyya, is Tijaniyya. You'll find that Ahmed al-Tijani, that he claimed that the Messenger of Allah ﷺ came in the sittings of him, of their singing, and them blowing whistles, or clapping and singing, or gatherings of musical instruments, that he claims that the Messenger of Allah ﷺ attended these gatherings, that he comes to these gatherings. That you'll find this is some of the statements of Ahmed al-Tijani. I'll say it again. Ahmed al-Tijani, you'll find that this Dajjal, his name was Ahmed al-Tijani, he claimed that the Messenger of Allah ﷺ attended gatherings of mukat wa tasdiyah, of places of music and musical instruments, and gatherings of what? People clapping and whistling and gathering where there's musical instruments being played. You'll find that this way, and also what is known, as he said, about a particular type of salah, which is called Salat al-Fatih. Salat al-Fatih. And he claims that just one time of this type of prayer is better than the Quran. 6,000 times. Which is known about Salat al-Fatih, as he calls it. That's known. You'll also find from the statements of Ahmed al-Tijani, I think I'll suffice with this because I don't want to get too much into detail today. But this is from the turuq, or the ways of the tariqa al-Sufiya, which is called At-Tijaniya. Like we said, it is very prevalent in Africa. All different types of tariqas you'll find it depends on different countries. Whether in Pakistan and India, which is more of Naqshbandiyya or Baralawiyya, and a lot of them Qadiriyya. And in Morocco, and those side of the countries, is more Shadiliyya. And you, like we said, you have different types, which is, that's Ismailiyya, that's from the Shia. Shadiliyya, Tijaniya is more in Africa. Pakistan, India is Qadiriyya, Naqshbandiyya, and Baralawiyya. Those type of turuq of Sufiya, in which we talked about, especially Ahmed al-Tijani, is very famous for Salat al-Fatih, which is something that is an innovative practice in which, if one was to indulge in it, you'll find it to be very extremely strange. Very strange. I wish I don't have time to talk about it right now. You'll find, like we said, from the point of why we're mentioning this, is his claim that the Messenger of Allah ﷺ attends the gatherings when they perform certain acts, which are impermissible, such as gatherings of musical instruments that are played. That the Messenger of Allah ﷺ attends certain gatherings. The Messenger of Allah ﷺ, as we know, Ya Ma'ashal Ikhwa, right now he's in the grave ﷺ. And we believe that he ﷺ is not floating in different gatherings or attending certain gatherings at all, as that is from the khurafat to the mystic, so-called pathetic ways of what they call khurafat, wa khaza'balat, and ta'ammat. Different types of corruptive, if you want to say catastrophic, which it does destroy the minds of the people. You'll find is khaza'balat, different types of myths and superstitions that the Sufis, that they believe that the Messenger of Allah does come and attend these type of gatherings. And if a person believes that the Messenger of Allah, which I have another poetry which the Sufis say, that the Messenger of Allah now has come and he's with us and he's present with us right now. In some of the gatherings and their circles, when they make different types of remembrances, and they say that the Messenger of Allah is present with us. We feel his presence. He's here now. All those are from the affairs of satanic or afkar iblisiyya shaytaniyya. They're all from the affairs that are satanic and those matters in which Allah has sent down with no authority. In which the one, if he, like we said, it's incumbent upon one to stay far away from these beliefs because they're ideologies of polytheism and paganism. As the Messenger of Allah right now is in the grave. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives, as we know, the message of Allah to salams back to his ummah. But the point in which we're mentioning this is that the message of Allah right now is in his grave, alayhi salatu wasalam. And he does not pass over gatherings, especially gatherings of musical instruments, which is in it things that are impermissible and things that make Allah ta'ala angry. You'll also find from those who indulge in these type of matters, especially from the greatest heads of the Sufiya, is Abdul Wahhab al-Sha'rani. Abdul Wahhab al-Sha'rani, who has matters that if you was to hear some of it, you'll probably laugh out, you'll probably buzz out laughing. if you'll find that he was from those who used to give the khutbahs naked. He used to give the khutbahs naked. And he used to pass gas in gatherings. Abdul Wahab al-Sha'rani he lived there probably, I think, the 8th and 9th century. Still to this day, the Sufis that they do weird things like this. It's not. It's still to this day they do strange, extremely weird things to this day. You'll find that they would pass gas in the gathering and then find in the scribe and say that someone else did it. People who are just extremely weird people. But anyway, the point of what we're saying is, if I was to read you some of the stuff that's in this book, we call it Tabaqat and Al-Uhud Al-Muhammadiyya by Sha'rani. Oh my goodness. It's what they call mudhikat or mubkiyat fi anan wahid. It's things that make you cry and makes things that make you laugh at one time. Due to the fact of how evil it is, and to think that somebody will be actually indulgent in this and say that he's Muslim at the same time. For this is from the different types of extremism. You'll find that they say, for example, that the Messenger of Allah ﷺ visits people and visits gatherings. And not only that you'll find that some of them, me and Ahmed al-Tijani, also legislated for him affairs of the religion that opposes the religion which he was sent with, alayhi salatu wasalam. This is from the extremism of some of the Turuq al-Sufiyya, to the point Ahmed al-Tijani was given privileges in the Sharia. They said that the Messenger of Allah gave him legislations in the religion of what he wasn't given, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala completed by him the religion. So this is the different types of extreme. If I ask you guys about these people, I need you guys to know these answers. You need to write some of these things down because they're very important. If a person was to ask you, I know a tariqa called a Tijaniya, what would you say? Somebody who's Sufi is Tijani, you wanted to teach him, what would you say? You say, well, Ahmed Tijani, number one, is known for Salat al-Fatih, which he praises and say is better than recitation of the Quran 6,000 times. You'll also say that he also said that the Messenger of Allah ﷺ attends gatherings, which has in it musical instruments. You'll also find that he says from his statements, which are evil, that the Messenger of Allah legislated for him affairs of the religion in which he was not given when Allah sent him as a prophet and messenger. That's also from the statements of Ahmed al-Tijani, which is very, very what? Very evil. Al-Fatih, not Al-Fatiha. He called it Al-Fatih. Na'am, Ahmed al-Tijani. You'll find that Abdul Wahab al-Sha'rani, especially Sha'rani says so much stuff. I don't have time. Whew. That, as you'll find that even a Sha'rani who claimed that his sheikh, who's from the Khawas, the so-called, those who were special or exclusive, that his sheikh never left off the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He never leaves him off a blink of an eye, even after his death, meaning that they're always still together. And this is a lie, and this is a what? Fabrication. Because after, how would we refute this notion? We would say, number one, during the time the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam used to come to gatherings after his death and be present, or be with their so-called people paired up after his death and with their so-called sheikhs or what have you, floating around in some mysterious world, as they say. Then wouldn't it be more befitting that the Sahaba will have knowledge of this? That the Sahaba will know this? And that the Sahaba will also be more befitting that they would be able to know about this matter before these people, because they were the best of creation. And they did with the heads of those who were righteous. And despite of that, they never said any of these matters. which is to show that all these type of what? All these different types of statements clearly are false, and they are baseless, and they have no what? Evidence to support it. So all these different type of matters that we mentioned is all what? Incorrect. Because if it was the case that the Messenger of Allah manifests himself in certain gatherings or in certain types of dreams or what have you, coming to certain people and them being paired up, and they can now travel together in some mysterious world or some mysterious reality or some imaginative or figurative or allegorical, whatever you want to say, type of matter, then the Sahaba would have knowledge of this, in which they didn't. None of the Sahaba had a gathering and said that the Messenger of Allah is present with us right now. You'll never find a narration like this at all, which is to clearly show that all these different types of ideologies clearly go oppose what is correct and what is the correct belief system. And all this is examples of extremism, of the Messenger of Allah being raised above his level, of even being raised to the level of, like we said, of rububiyyah and uluhiyyah. So if you look in the hadith, what it says about Abdun faqula Abdullah wa Rasuluh, that the Messenger of Allah said about himself, he's a servant. He's a abd. Take your hands out your pocket, your jacket pocket. He said that verily I'm a servant. He says, and I'm also Abdullah wa Rasuluh. So the Messenger of Allah says, say that I'm Allah's servant and I'm his messenger. When the Messenger of Allah, alayhi salatu wasalam, when he affirmed for himself of being a what? A abd. When he affirmed for himself of being a what? Being a servant and having ubudiyyah. And also affirming himself Ar-Risala. As we talked about last class, in this is a refutation against, again, the Christians and the Jews. Firstly, by also affirming that Jesus, the son of Mary, was not deity or worship or a part of Allah. Rather, he was just a servant, refuting the Christians. And likewise, at the same time, refuting the Yahud, refuting the Jews where they denied his messengership and his prophethood. Same thing likewise. It's as if the Messenger of Allah, as if he was saying that there will be Muslims that will take him out of his what? Out of his level and what he deserves, which is of reverence and respect, no doubt, and raising him above that status. In which he, alayhi salatu wasalam, was preparing his nation for something that was going to come in the future, which he knew. As if he knew that what they were going to fall into. That they were going to try to raise him above his level and fall exactly into what the Christians did in the past. Rather than what they do of today in modern day times. So the Messenger of Allah, what did he say? Say that I am Allah's abd. Meaning that I'm the servant of Allah, a servant of Allah. Do not raise me above my level. Even though Allah has given me characteristics which is considered the best characteristics of a human being. Which is what? To be a prophet and a messenger. And also likewise, being in the status of those who completed his worship. The human being, he becomes complete the more he purifies his ubudiyyah of Allah. I'll say it again. There is a type of completeness of a human being. But it has nothing to do with uluhiyyah. It has nothing to do with worship. As far as him being an idol or deity of worship. As far as being complete as a human being is one who purifies his servitude for Allah. That's where you become complete in regards to being a human being, not a deity of worship. For the more you make yourself subservient and more submissive and more fearing of Allah, the more you become complete as a human being, not a deity of worship. The more you purify your ubudiyyah of Allah by carrying out what Allah commanded and abstaining from what He prohibited, and now attaining knowledge of Tawheed, attaining knowledge of Shirk, and also purifying your worship of Allah and your obedience, your submissiveness to Allah. This is when your level becomes high as regards to being a human being. You become what? High in level as far as a human being. But notice I still keep saying what? Human being. Never a deity of worship. A human being like we said, only becomes complete when he becomes more submissive to his Lord Tabarak wa Ta'ala. The more he becomes more submissive and obedience of uprightness, the more his iman becomes higher, and he becomes at a higher level as far as being a slave and a servant of Allah. That's it. And the prophets and the messengers reached these high levels of ubudiyah. They reached a high level of slavery and servitude for Allah. That's when they what? That's when the individual truly has what? Has attained a high level of a human being. Is when you have now completed your ubudiyah, your submissiveness to Allah Ta'ala, where you're now, your ruh, or your soul, is inclined towards everything Allah loves and goes away from everything Allah hates. You'll find that Shaykh al-Islam mentions about the statement of ubudiyah. There's another statement of ibadah. You'll find that he says in another statement, huwa injidab ar-ruh ila Allah ta'ala injidaban kamilan. He said that another meaning of ubudiyah of Allah, he said that the soul being inclined towards everything Allah loves. The soul being inclined towards everything that Allah loves as far as in the aspect of worship. The aspect and affair of worship. Meaning your desires is all in regards and in accordance to what Allah has commanded you to what? Carry out. Of monotheism. And learning it. And abstaining from polytheism. And also of sunnah. Learning what the sunnah is and abstaining from innovative practices. And also obedience of uprightness in which Allah commanded you to what? Carry out. Whether it be affairs of marriage, of course. And being upright with the people. All these affairs is which Allah Ta'ala loves. And that your soul is inclined towards carrying out these matters. When you have done this, you have actualized your servitude of Allah in the most perfect manner. But we know that Kamal, perfect is what they call Al-Kamal al-Mutlaq lillahi wahda. But absolute perfection is only for Allah. But the human being does his best to strive towards trying to purify his ubudiyah of Allah Ta'ala. Purifying his servitude and his slavery of Allah. The rights of Allah Ta'ala and the rights of the Messenger of Allah, and then you have rights that are shared between them. Listen to what I'm saying. Shaykh al-Islam in his book mentioned these three affairs in his book called Al-Ubudiyah. There's a book by Shaykh al-Islam, it's called Al-Ubudiyah, it's called Servitude. Shaykh al-Islam said that the rights of in regards to servitude, breaks down to three categories. You have the rights of Allah. The rights of Allah, which is al-khasa'is al-ilahiyya, wal-rububiyyah, التي يختص بها الرب تبارك وتعالى. The khasa'is or the characteristics of worship and rububiyyah of Allah. That's only for Allah alone. No more, no less. It's only for Allah alone. The khasa'is or the characteristic of uluhiyah and rububiyyah is only for Allah. I think what I'm saying is clear. Is it not clear? Some people looking at me. The khasa'is, the characteristics of uluhiyah and rububiyyah, of lordship and worship, is only for Allah alone. That is the rights of Allah Ta'ala. Then you have rights that's only for the Messenger of Allah alayhi salatu wasalam. What are those rights, everyone? That he be followed and be obeyed. Not only be followed and obeyed, but also be him being revered and being honored. Being revered, being honored, and so I want to say veneration, but say respect, honor, and reverence. Respect, honor, and reverence. I didn't say worship. I said respect, honor, and reverence. That you revere him, alayhi salatu wasalam, you respect him. And you love him, of course, more than you love your children and your wealth. But not raising him to the first category. Is it clear? Honor, respect, reverence, and loving him, alayhi salatu wasalam, more than what? One's wealth and children. And himself, alayhi salatu wasalam. One loving the message of Allah more than he loves himself, his wealth, and his children. But not raising him to the level of the first category. Is it clear what I'm saying? Then you have the third, which is shared between them. The third, which is shared between both of them, is between what Allah himself has said, that no one's iman is valid except with belief in also his messenger. So one has to have iman in Allah. And he also has to what? Have iman that he is the messenger of Allah. And if you try to suffice with one without the other, then your shahada is batila. Then your what? Then your testimony is what? Rejected. Invalid. It's baseless. You can't just say, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah, thumma taskut. هذا لا يكفي. حتى تأتي بالجزء الثاني منها. ألا وهي أن محمد رسول الله. That your one says la ilaha illallah and that's it. Is it enough? Until he comes with what? Affirming the messengership of the messenger of Allah, alayhi salatu wasalam. So the rights of Allah, ta'ala, and the rights of the messenger of Allah, we know there are some. There's only for Allah, which is a worship, and for the messenger of Allah is reverence and respect. And there's rights, like we said, that is shared from them, which is not in the affairs of worship, but as far as in the affairs of iman. That in order for one's faith to be valid, he has to believe in Allah and his messenger. And he cannot suffice with one without the other. Or his shahada, or his testimony is invalid, rejected. You'll find that Allah himself gathers between these rights. In one ayah, which is in Surah An-Nasr. Surah An-Nasr. Allah Ta'ala says in this book, in Surah An-Nasr, Surah Al-Fatih, ayah number 9. I'm sorry. Surah Al-Fatih, ayah number 9. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in his book, وَلِتُؤْمِنُوا بِاللَّهِ وَرَسُولِهِ. وَتُعَزِّرُوهُ وَتُوَقِّرُوهُ وَتُسَبِّحُوهُ بُكْرَةً وَأَصِيلًا. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in his book about the rights, that is, of course we know that is, you can see all three, but it starts off with the third category, which we're talking about now, that you believe in Allah, and you believe in his messenger, and you revere him, and you honor him. Then here, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala starts talking about himself. Then you glorify him. Bukrata wa asila. In the morning and day. So you'll find that the ayah gathers between the rights there is what? Of iman, not ibadah. Not of worship. But as far as of faith, Camden, as far as in regards to faith, these affairs in which you guys are sitting and being laxed in is the most important of affairs. I'm teaching you guys the foundation of your religion, in which if you mix up these matters, you'll be from those who are out in the street who's Muslim that don't know these matters at all. You'll find that there are Muslims out there that don't know these fundamentals. You know what comes as a result of it? You say that the Messenger of Allah prohibited music, for example. And they'll say out of their mouths, music is from my culture. How are we going to reject it? Is that from the religion to say a statement like this? Is that from that now purifies your ubudiyah? Does that purify your servitude of Allah to say a statement like this? Yeah, akhi, you don't know. We've been black. We've been oppressed. Music is from our culture. That's from our way. How are you going to now remove something that's from your culture? Or move something that's from your great traditions? that is deep rooted in your family, from your ancestors. This is what has got us over the hump. Yeah, it's got us into a hump, into another atrocity, into another catastrophe. You'll find that those who say these statements have not understood these fundamentals. Like we said, the second category is to show reverence and respect to the message of Allah. So the message of Allah says something, you say, no, my tradition and my custom say this. Or the message of Allah ﷺ said this, no, akhi, but my mother and father did this. Or my ancestors did this. And you'll find there's a lot of Muslims that say this in a lot of countries because they don't know these fundamentals. And yeah, I know what the message of Allah said, but, yeah, akhi, but, you got to realize what we're facing. For example, you'll find even in Palestine that the Jews have now are spreading their corruption, and they're not even Jews in its origin. They're not. If you look into the history of it, which they're now calling their Zionists, who are preparing for the Dajjal to come out. That's all. But at any rate, the reason why they are spreading in the country is because if you was to ask the Palestinians of a lot of the different types of satanic shirkiyat that they're practicing, you'll find that they're doing it in Palestine. And you'll say, yeah, akhi, do you realize that this way of you assassinating and throwing bombs and assassinating the Yahud or doing certain things of affairs that have opposed the message of Allah in so-called retaliation to the Jews of what they did by taking a methodology that opposed the message of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Yeah, I know that, but you don't know what they did to our kids. You don't know what they did to our children. So now you put forth your emotions over what the message of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam commanded. When you do this, more disgrace and more honor and humiliation, more disgrace and more humiliation descends from Allah. And this is what you see are happening to the Muslims all around the earth, all around the world. Why? Because they're not respecting the message of Allah as if they have doubt that it will not be successful. And they retaliate a lot of people based upon emotions. Not letting the sharia of the legislation with the message of Allah came with be their guide of how they conduct themselves in these type of matters. And as a result of it, more disgrace and more humiliation falls. The curtain of what? Humiliation and disgrace will fall upon the Muslims if they don't now start to change and do affairs that are in accordance to what the message of Allah commanded and how we're supposed to conduct in these matters. You'll find that they do a lot of different types of innovative practices in Palestine and a lot of other countries. You'll be surprised at the innovative practices that they're involved in. And if you try to tell one of them, don't you realize that maybe that the reason why the Jews have allowed or been enabled with this type of power and domination over the Muslims because of you doing this type of polytheism? Or this type of innovative practice? These are the things that the Muslims have to be very aware of. Because if they stop it, and as a result of it, they purify their belief system, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give them victory over their enemies. But if they don't, it switches. Allah gives the power over the enemies over the what? Over the Muslims. And we know there's a statement in which the Salaf used to say, فَإِنَّ اللَّهَ يَنْصُرُ الدَّوْلَةَ الْعَادِلَةَ وَإِنْ كَانَ كَافِرًا. ينصر الدولة الكافرة وإن كانت إذا كانت عائلة فإن الله تبارك وتعالى ينصر الدولة الكافرة إن كانت عادلة ويذل الدولة المسلمة إذا كانوا ظالمين وإذا كانوا ظلمة. And we'll talk about that at a later date, inshallah, how also likewise justice also, being just and upright, that Allah will give aid to a land and the people in a place if they are just. If they're just. Even if they're kuffar. No. If they carry out adl and just, Allah will give them what? Some type of aid. And how even if people are Muslim and they're not just, that Allah Ta'ala still can humiliate them even if they're Muslimun. Is it clear what I'm saying, everyone? Sleepy? You understand what I'm saying? طيب. So these are the rights in which we'll stop. I'm going to stop right here. And we'll start that class a little bit earlier too. I knew it was a little bit late tonight. But anyway, so those are the three rights which is only for Allah. The ubudiyya of Allah and the message of Allah is to have reverence and respect for Him. What is reverence and respect for Him after His death? Which is to show reverence and respect for His what? For the actual sunnah, the message of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. A lot of people think that's only for His life. After His death, alayhi salatu wasalam, is to show respect to His sunnah and to His statements and His actions. Don't let one come and say, for the message of Allah said that music is haram. And it is from the voice of shaitan, which Allah Himself has said. And then you come behind and say, I know the message of Allah said, but I feel that that's not right. I feel that's not right. Have you given respect and honor and reverence to the message of Allah when you say a statement like this? You understand? Or for example, ya akhi, why are you praying? Why are you praying with your hands to the side? Say, why are you praying to your hands to the side? The message of Allah prayed like this. I know how the message of Allah prayed, but my imam prayed like this. When you say a statement like this, are you showing reverence and respect to the message of Allah, or are you disrespecting Him? Disrespect. You're not honoring Him and revering Him as He ought to be revered. Why are you praying now that you say that the message of that? We give a lot of examples. Also, for example, the person's praying with his hands to the side, and you say, I don't care. What the message of Allah said, my imam prayed like this. That's all I know, that's what I'm sticking to. Is that respect for the message of Allah, alayhi salatu wasalam? It's not showing respect. Disrespect. And you'll find, like we said, there's a lot of Muslims that do this all over the dunya. For example, you'll even find that they have different types of ibadat. Oh man, I want to talk about that right now. I want to stick to us today. Oh man. For any rate, ya ma'ashal ikhwa, these are the type of respects in which one has to have for the message of Allah after his death is what? Is to have respect for His sunnah and His statements and His actions, and to give precedence to what He said over the statements of anyone, no matter who it is. That is showing respect and reverence and showing and giving Him His status as He deserves, alayhi salatu wasalam, where you show that you truly love Him over everything, including yourself and your children and your wealth. That is what the message of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam deserves after his death, alayhi salatu wasalam. Then those rights that are shared between them, which is of Iman, which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you believe in Him and also His messenger. We'll stop here inshallah. And I wanted to talk about something else, but I can't do it today. I'll stop here. I forgot something. I forgot totally. Also, we'll talk about the different extremisms in belief. We'll talk about that later. Of pertaining to what? All the different deviant sects. All the different deviant sects of the Muslims all fell into some type of extremism. There's no type of extremism out there except that they've had their portion of falling into it. Of some type of form or way of extremism and crept in their belief system. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala save us from falling into one of those matters, which is either being too laxed or being too what? Extreme. Any questions about the lesson? Fadal. انجذابا تاما. انجذابا تاما. ما عليك أن تدخل هذه المعلومة في جوجل تدخل هذه الكلمة وهذه الكلمات. أنا سأعطيك إياها بالنص الآن إن شاء الله بعد الدرس سأعطيك إياه. Anything else about the lesson? تفضل جعفر. العهود المحمدية. العهود المحمدية. He also has a book called طبقات. الطبقات, which is also filled with filth. Matter of fact, I'll read you one statement. I didn't want to get too deep into it, but there's a lot of statements in this book called Tabaqat. I'll read just one of them. It's called At-Tabaqat al-Kubra. Tabaqat al-Kubra al-Sha'rani, which is the greatest of books of Sufiya that the Sufis love, because it has a whole bunch of funny comedy in it that they glorify. To me, it's comedy. It's almost comical. For example, they talk about one of their sheikhs, or their shuyukh of Turuq al-Sufiya. For example, he say, قال إبراهيم الحوفي والحوفي كان الشيخ يوسف الهمداني يتكلم على الناس فقال له فقيهان كان في مجلسه قال له اسكت فإنما أنت مبتدع فقال لهما اسكتا لا عشتما فماتا مكانهما. He said that Ibrahim, one of the Sufi sheikhs, started talking, I guess talking down to the people, talking against the people. So two people from the ulama, people of fiqh, was sitting in a sitting, and he said to him, be quiet, for verily you're an innovator. So he said to them, you two be quiet, and may you two not live. So they said they died in their places. فَمَاتَا مَكَانَهُمَا. So he died in their places. Another stupid statement of theirs, they say, it's a lot of stuff in here in this book, طبقات الكبرى للشعراني. This is a bunch of absolute foolishness. جاءته امرأة من همدان باكية فقالت له إن ابني أسره الإفرنج فصبرها فلم تصبر فقال اللهم فك أسره فقال اللهم فك أسره وعجل فرجه وعجل فرجه ثم قال لها اذهبي إلى دارك تجديه بها فذهبت المرأة فإذا ولدها في الدار فتعجبت وسألته فقال إني كنت الساعة في القسطنطينية العظمى والقيود في رجلي والحرس علي فأتاني شخص فاحتملني وأتى بي إلى هنا كلمح البصر. Another story in this stupid book, it says that it was a woman from Hamadan. It was a woman from the land of Hamadan. She was crying, right? She said to the Sufi Sheikh, Ibrahim ibn Hawfi, it says that verily my son was taken captive by the Ifrinj, by the Ifrinj. The Fringe, I think, was like the Ingelis, I think. The Fringe, the French? The Franks, ahsant. He was took a slave by the Franks. So he made her stay patient. She couldn't remain patient. So then the Sufi Sheikh said, oh Allah, free him from being a captive, right? And also hasten for him his relief. So he could be relieved of this matter he's in. Said, ثم قال لها, then he said to her, go back to your house, right? You'll find him there. You'll find him there. So the woman went back to her house, and the child was in the house. So she was amazed. فسألته, then she asked him. That's to say that this is over. He said, then she asked her son. The son said, verily, I was in this one moment, I was in Qustantiniya al-Uzma, in a far remote distance place, which is a Qustantiniya, which we know Qustantiniya is where everyone is in Turkey, which I think they know what they call today is Istanbul. Istanbul is Qustantiniya. Allah, the Prophet ﷺ mentioned Qustantiniya in authentic hadith of Muslim. At any rate, let's talk about that. He said that very often Qustantiniya. Qustantiniya is what we know nowadays as Turkey, which is Istanbul. And that's just to sum it up. So then he said, verily, and in one moment, I was in Qustantiniya. And shackles was in my feet. And there was guards that were watching me. So a man came out of nowhere, carried me, and brought me here in the blink of an eye. This is from the stories of the Sufis. This is Abdul Wahhab al-Sha'rani. And the stories get more weirder and more weirder and more weirder as you scroll down. That's just some of the stories. You guys still want to hear some more comedy? Huh? He said it's madness. This is from their books they glorify. You see, from their greatest of books called Tabaqat al-Kubra al-Sha'rani, which they do take it seriously. Here's another book where he said they used to pass gas in the city, and they would act like it was somebody else that passed gas. And he was one of those people that used to give the khutbahs naked. He was one of the people that used to give a khutbah naked. No, they say he's a wali of Allah. He could do that. He's a wali. He's close to Allah. He could do stuff like that. I guess. He said that. Sufis do a bunch of weird things. I have more stories for you guys, but I'll stop here. Any questions about the lesson? I'll talk about more later. These are from the comical, the comedian, comical ways that if you don't read these stories. At any rate, these are not called qasas, they're called turaf, shaytaniyah. At any rate, anything about the lesson? هذا وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك